this can't be fixed. Worthless. Junk. Oh well. Time for some modding. Bogus Jake here with a video on modifying the Busby Night Attack. Sold under the Adventure Force label, but this is a 100% Busby product. And I'm actually going to modify this thing in my typical way with one addition of a brass sleeper breech. Now, that's the only kind of breech that I personally do. I'm not into the sealed breeches. I don't need that kind of high velocity, and that's a whole lot more work if you don't need it. But I'm going to take this thing, I'm going to actually go through it, install a Nerf Retaliator spring from NF Strike that is a 7 kilogram, as I typically do. That's my favorite spring to use. Not so high that it destroys the blaster internally and requires tons of reinforcement, but high enough to get solid performance. And out of Busby internals, I typically get around 120-ish feet per second by doing my typical gut and respringing. And this time we're going to go for some brass on the breech, so it should get a little bit better. And I also am going to soon start to experiment with an 8.2 kilogram spring for NF Strike that I have just received in. But here we go. Let's get this thing out of the package and get to work on it. Okay, here we are with the blaster apart. Now, the Night Attack's actually one of my recent favorites for modifying, because the fact that it has very, very little solvent welding on it. It has two little parts you need to pull off. The top priming slide has this little piece clicked into the top, and you need to use a small flathead. I use one of these micro flatheads actually to get up underneath of it and get one of the tabs to pop out, and then you can pop off the other side easy. Same thing on the grip. It has this little small additional piece that clicks in, and use a micro flathead and you can pop that right out. The only solvent welded piece is this little bit that actually fits on the front of the barrel. That's it. Not actually necessary, but it does offer a nice trim piece. And on each of the two that I've only pulled two of these apart so far, but on the two I've pulled apart, it's only solvent welded on one side. And it's been fairly easy to come off, so that's very nice. And just a little tip for you people out there who watch, if you ever find shot glasses, or small candles, like this was a small candle jar, save those. If you have multiple projects going at the same time, you can just take this, and I've got all the screws, and I'll put all the little bits and pieces in here, and that's going to be my project holder. If you had a bunch going at the same time, you can put a piece of masking tape on it and label it. But one little modding tip right there. Have little jars handy. So I can set that aside, because this blaster is going to get more done to it. I'm actually going to be taking it, and I'm going to paint this white, and we're going to pop out these little pieces here, and this actually is just screwed in, so that's going to come out as well. And I'll take that off. I'm going to do all that stuff off camera, but I'm going to take this all apart, and this is going to get a coat of white paint to cover up that really, really bright green. And then I'll pop the blue back in, all those blue pieces as accent pieces, put the orange back on, and just leave it alone. And I'll actually get a couple dabs of super glue on that front piece just to pop it back on place. And that'll be the finishing touch for a custom paint job. It's just going to get a little bit of white, and I'll probably touch up and hand paint some additional accents with maybe some gray or black in here, just to give it a little more finished look. So that's my plans for the blaster. Internally, this one kind of breaks the mold with Busby in that all of the moving parts are attached on the left-hand side of the shell. They've pulled a Nerf on that one. Nerf will sometimes do that with their blasters. Busby normally keeps all their stuff on the opposite side of the shell, away from the screws. But in this case, they didn't. And if you want to know how to remove locks on Busby blasters, very simple. Okay, locks are gone. That's it. That's your lock. That is the locking system on Busby blasters. It's a very easy way to tell a Busby blaster anyways. But here we go. We have the whole plunger assembly right here. Pull that out. Take this one out. There's your stock spring. And that actually has a very good seal. I actually don't even need to improve that. And if you're not a modder and you wonder why do people always do this when they take a blaster apart, what you're checking for is to see the tension that this O-ring provides just naturally when pushing it. Because the system, you don't want too much friction from that O-ring on the inside of the plunger tube. Too much friction, and it doesn't matter what kind of spring load you put behind it, it's going to decrease the performance. Because it'll drag too much, even if it's lubricated. But what we're going to do here is the typical remove the dart post, punch out the air restrictor, which on Busby's is easy to do it with a big flathead screwdriver and just hammering on it from the back. That's the easiest way to do it. And then I will slot in some brass into here. I've got my brand new brass right here. We will actually slide some of that down in there and create a sleeper breech, which I'll put it all the way down in, and then we'll have it finished right here, and I'll put a little angle on it. But that's about it on that. I'll cut the camera off, get to work, show all that done, and then come back to it. Okay, so here we are on my workbench with a project blaster that I've got going as a build. We've got a few segments already filmed. This has been a project in the making for a little bit, and I wanted to get it put back together and sent off. I'll be waiting to release this video until after the recipient actually gets it to avoid spoilers. But what this is a brass sleeper breech, as you can see down there. It is a Busby Adventure Force Night Attack. It's going to be running a 7 kilogram spring. It should be hitting, I'll run a chronograph at the very end, but it should be hitting up in the 140, 150-ish range, as some other projects that I've done like this have. We'll see, though, when we actually get the proof of the finished product running over the chronograph. But I'm going to get this thing put back together, and we'll do a little testing. So you can sit tight with me as I fiddle around with it and get it back together. And I did a very simple stock-ish paint job, where I just took the shell, which was a very bright green, and painted it white and put a few little accent pieces. And I actually tried to keep the Night Attack symbol, which is only on the one side. I kept it, and Busby, in their infinite wisdom, makes most of their coloring, makes it actually be insertable plastic pieces. And all I have to do is, now this thing's been apart for a while, I just have to remember which one goes where, and that's that. But, like, for instance, this one goes over here. Got a few pieces like that I'll have to put back together, but I'm going to get this thing back together, and we'll come back and see the finished product. Okay, here we are with a quick segment with it mostly back together. The only thing I have installed is the 7 kilogram spring on the plunger rod and fit it into the plunger rod holder and the plunger tube. This is just a layout, once again, of how the Busby Night Attack looks internally. Very, very, very common internals. The trigger itself operates the catch back here. And moving forward, it has a pull rod that hooks to the... I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. It's basically a retainer for the dart tooth. The dart tooth is spring-loaded on Busby blasters. This is almost like a lock. It holds it up until you pull the trigger, and then the trigger just simply pulls this out of the way and allows the dart tooth to, automatically, by spring load, fall down. And very simple, very durable, and kind of ingenious design. A lot less going on here. And basically, the trigger it operates everything. And it does so in a very simplified way that's very, very nice. It makes it easy to work with. Even though I've had this thing tore down now for a couple weeks, it was just like nothing to put back together. Of course, my familiarity with Busby blasters helps there, but even if you're a first time, you look at this and say, oh wow, I can figure that out in 30 seconds. And here's your magazine catch. It's very simple, 2 pieces plus a spring. Plunger tube is hooked to the breech. It's very, very nice design. I never can say that enough. But one last look before it's completely actually installed.
I'm going to lube up the O-ring a little bit before it goes into the plunger tube. Plunger tube's already lubricated itself, so we're going to just slap it back together, and when you come back, you'll see the thing actually assembled. Okay, here we are with the finished product. This is my custom brass sleeper breeched and custom painted Night Attack from Busby. I'm going to showcase this. This is not actually for me, but man, do I wish it was now that I look at it. I'm going to have to redo this. Paint job's not perfect. I do have some rippling from the humidity that we've had lately, and just a little touch over accidentally. See if it'll pick up. I did cover it with another coat of white, but all in all, I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out. Now let's see if it looks good. It's pretty. Let's see if it's got any bite to it. Okay, now I'm just going to do these quick shots live. It's smooth, catches no problem, and of course we're going to test it with Precise Pros first. Magazine fits in good. Loads smoothly. Let's try it. Okay, well, that's promising. It blew off my my net. Fix that up. This is just a cheap airsoft net, so yeah, it happens once in a while. It did read 139.9. An error there. Let's try again. Okay, that's an error. The 706.8 is definitely an error, but let's get it up there, and a low one, 107.4. Well, blew the net apart. Stretch it back over. Probably gonna have to invest in a new one. Let's see what we got coming up next. Now we're on to some elites. Okay. Showing 168.7. Don't know how believable that is. Got about 110. 118.7 with some used elites. Showing 265. I got one shot left. 150.5. Well, that's a range. Dart fit into the barrel is sketchy with the elites. Precise Pros were hitting around about 140, 150. My last elite shot hit 150.5. I'll actually turn that to the camera. It registered all 10. I had 10 shots in here, 5 Precise Pros, 5 elites. It did register all, but I'm going to throw out. I had one that read, drastically low. It only read in the 20s, and I know it hit way harder than that. And then one read 700 and some, and then one, of course, read 268. But throwing all those errors out, it was averaging between around 110 to 150. So it's got a little bit of bite, and that is my Night Attack here that I have custom painted. Let's scoot everything go this way out of the frame so we can focus on the blaster at hand. But that is a new Night Attack that I have just finished. It does have a brass sleeper breech in there. I'll actually open that back up one more time. See if we can't get some light down in there. You can kind of see the brass breech against the orange. And of course, locks are removed. Air restrictors removed. It's priming smooth, catching well, and I'm going to send this thing off now. But I've been saving the video to put up to the last minute. But I don't want to give away who's getting this, but I hope they will be quite pleased. This is going to be a gift to somebody who's supported the channel quite a bit. And this is my thank you to them for being so patient with me on a couple other builds. But this will find a new home. And then eventually I'm going to have to redo this thing exactly as it is for myself. Because I am loving this blaster, actually. I like the color scheme. I love how Busby does the individual pieces that you can pull out. It allowed me to just add a little bit of accenting. I didn't have to go crazy because that orange piece was stock that way. The blue pieces, they pop out from the inside. And I just stuck them back in. And they're press fit into the painted shell. It's very nice, actually. I hope everybody enjoys this. I'll edit this up and get it put out, and this will be on my channel for you guys to see what I've been up to with one of my projects. It's taken me far too long to finish, but again, custom night attack with brass breech, a full custom paint job. Smugger Stick, hope you enjoyed this.